Test, test, test. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. You can hear me, obviously.
I can hear you. You can hear me?
Yes. Hold on. Let me switch this and let me see if you can hear me. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay. Is it too loud?
No, not at all.
Okay, good. I'm switching over to my because I'm last time it didn't record properly and I was capturing it with the wrong program, so I switched to a new program. So I'm using my actual microphone that I normally use.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Can you see my screen?
I can.
All right. So today we're going to do your billing management consultation.
Okay.
Let's go through our PowerPoint and then we'll get started on the training, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So again, billing management consultation today. After this, we're going to follow it up with another insurance management. The focus is a little bit more on claims and troubleshooting. And then we'll do your review and you'll be all set with your boot camp.
Okay.
A couple of the things that we're going to go over today include the patient checkout process. So posting a payment, printing an invoice, and posting a deposit. And then we're also going to do a patient checkout process with claims submission. So insurance payments and posting payments from deposits. We'll look at manual invoices, adjustments, invoices versus line item adjustments. And then we'll also look at adjusting invoices regarding adding procedures, deleting procedures, what happens if a line item charge is incorrect, and how to change a provider on a line item.
Okay.
Okay. We'll look at voiding invoices in case we make a mistake, how to make general account payments, and then some other billing items, so backdating, overpayments, and refunds. And then we'll go into an admin setup for billing, and we'll look at reports right at the end. So your period summary, deposit slip, responsible party aging, procedure reports, and statements.
Okay.
And although that sounds like a lot, that is it. Okay? You ready to get started?
Let's do it.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and hand controls over to you.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
I can. Perfect.
Okay, cool.
Okay. I have all my little boys home today, so if you hear any background noise, just let me know and I'll go threaten their lives to be quiet.
Sounds good. Right. Do you want me to open up both?
Just your training one will be fine.
Okay.
Yay, no security alerts. That's good.
I know. Good.
All right. Perfect. Now, let's see. For Jafar, did we add insurance to him? I think we did.
Well, let me maximize. And I don't know. I think we did. Let's see. Nope.
Nope, doesn't look like it. Okay, that's okay. Let's use him to begin with.
Okay.
Go ahead and go to today on your schedule.
Okay.
And let's schedule him for an appointment. Anywhere on the schedule is fine.
Okay.
And let's just put emergency. We'll schedule him for a limited and a PA and a bite wing.
Okay.
And you can check to see if there's a tag in there for that. I'm not sure if there is. No, looks like just a hygiene appointment.
Okay.
It's always going to ask you to add a tooth number here, but honestly, if a patient's calling about a toothache, you're not really going to know what tooth it is anyway, so you don't have to add that.
Okay.
You can just click outside of the box. Okay?
Okay.
Perfect. All right, so now Jafar comes in. We're going to go ahead and check his appointment in. And he goes back to see you. You do your exam. You finish up with your appointment. He comes up. He's ready to check out. Okay, so we're going to right-click and check him out. Now, when you check out, it automatically launches you here into the billing module. Nothing is finalized, though, until you actually click the orange OK button on the right.
Okay.
So at this point, if anything needs to change as far as procedures that need to be entered, if maybe you took two PAs instead of one and it just didn't make it onto the appointment, you can enter that here. So you can still make changes at this point, okay?
Okay.
All right, so if everything looks good, we're going to go ahead and say okay. Okay, now once we say okay, your invoice is listed there in the blue section at the top of your screen. There's an invoice number associated with that, and you see that the date is also on the left-hand side.
Okay.
And you'll see here, since Jafar does not have insurance, it's showing the balance of $97, and it's showing a patient balance of $97. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to see inside this invoice, we'll just click on the invoice. That'll open it up for us. And now we can see that the invoice is for Jafar. We use the training fees fee guide, so that's important, especially if you're using some other type of fee guide, such as Medicaid or something like that. It should say the correct fee guide there.
Okay.
And then you have your procedures listed underneath. Provider listed in the provider column. Site, of course, is tooth number. And then units is units of time. Sometimes that transfers over, so I don't know why they have that there, but it's there. And then, of course, insurance, patient, and totals. Okay, so everything's kind of broken down there. Now, if we want to go ahead and make a payment for this invoice, what we're going to do is we'll right-click on the invoice at the top line there.
So here? Or?
Yep. Yep, anywhere in that top line is fine.
Is that not what I should have done?
Right-click or double, whatever you do with your Mac mouse. It's right-clicking.
It's closing it. Oh, there we go. So I'm clicking on the right side of my mouse. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right, yep, and then you'll go ahead and say add payment. Okay, so now your payment box opens up here. You see that it shows at the top the payment is from Jafar, and it says by payment type, so you'll need to go ahead and put in your payment type there. And we can just choose Visa. Perfect. And now it says pay the amount of $97 or full amount. You don't have to do both of those. You can just use one or the other, and if 97 is correct, then you can leave it exactly like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then go ahead and say okay. All right, so now in the blue section on your screen, you still see the invoice with the invoice number. Beside that invoice, instead of the red balances, you see in black it says paid. Right underneath that, you see your payment made from Jafar by a Visa, and if you look all the way on the right-hand side, it shows your payment amount there.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the ins and outs of a typical invoice. This one was really easy because there's no insurance or anything attached, and patient made a full payment, so it's really kind of easy to track what went on there. Down at the bottom of your screen, you have an account summary section. So that's going to be more like a ledger total. Total balances for all invoices for this patient. Obviously, he does not have any because this was his first invoice, but if there's ever a balance down there, even if this invoice is paid in full, that's an indicator that you're waiting on money either from insurance or from patient on another invoice. Okay? And we'll take a look at that in just a little while. Now you can also, you can print statements, so that's down on the bottom on the left-hand side, right above where it says account summary. You have a print statement option, and then you also have a print tax receipt option. So I know lots of patients start coming in at the end of the year. They want a tax receipt for their taxes. The tax receipt will contain the codes, the dates of service, the costs, and it'll have your office information listed there as well.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So, any questions so far?
Nope.
Okay. Well, then let's move on to something a little more difficult. Let's pull up Tomater. I know we've done work with him.
Okay.
Okay, so we have Tomater here. Can you check to see if he has insurance? Oh, good. He has 2 insurances. Awesome. So let's go ahead and schedule an appointment for him. Maybe we'll just schedule that routine check so we can use our tag. Yep, and then you'll just click on OK. It'll
Yep.
put it in.
Oops. There we go. There we go. There we go.
It's giving you trouble today.
Yeah, my mouse is acting up.
All right, go ahead and go ahead and check him in. And then we'll check him out. That was a very quick dental visit.
Really quick.
Okay, now as usual, it'll take you over to the billing module. So same thing as before. We have on the top line invoice for Mater Truck. We have our procedures there. Your new line item option is down at the bottom. So if you did any additional procedures that are not listed here, you can still add them in. Mm-hmm. Over on the right, you have your insurance, which is $168. Patient portion is 0. And total is $168. So for these procedures, most likely because they're preventative, it looks like everything's covered at 100%.
Okay.
Okay. Now you can say okay to this if everything's fine, or you can also go over to your left-hand side down at the bottom of your invoice, and there's a sentence that says, I want to finalize this invoice and go. Go ahead and click there for me. Now that's going to give you a bunch of different options. So you can say finalize the invoice and go, which does nothing but finalize the invoice. Finalize and print, and that'll print a receipt automatically. Finalize and pay will bring up that payment screen, just the way we did with, I just completely blanked on his name, Jafar. Mm-hmm. Adjust if you're entering some sort of adjustment, such as like a Medicaid adjustment or some sort of insurance write-off.
Okay.
You also have some claim options there. So you can automatically launch it to send an e-claim, send an advanced claim, or send a manual claim.
What's an advanced claim?
An advanced claim is it's a regular claim. It just gives you all of the options that are on your claim form. So if you need to put like a narrative or a predetermination number, the advanced claim option is what you'll go into. And we'll take a look at that too. And then below that, you have, of course, all of your insurance options and pay. So if there's something specific that you're needing to do with him, if you knew that you needed to send a claim and he owed something on this invoice, you could choose one of the claim options plus pay, and it'll go through the process of opening up those screens for you so that you don't have to keep right-clicking and opening and right-clicking and opening. Okay? For now, we'll just go ahead and say, let's say send an e-claim. Perfect. And now we're always going to get invalid things here just because we're in training. So for now, just say okay. In your live database, when you get these invalid messages, you'll want to actually read them because they'll tell you exactly what to fix on your claims if everything's not entered correctly. Okay? But we do see here that the invoice is listed, balance of $168. Looks like all of that is coming from insurance. And we see the claim listed underneath that invoice as well. So the claim is not going to land somewhere else on the screen. It's going to be all nice and tidy in the same blue section as the invoice that it belongs to. Okay. Now let's fast forward 2 weeks and say that we went ahead and got an insurance payment from his insurance. So what we're going to do is we'll right-click on the invoice. We have our EOB in our hand, so we know exactly what they paid. Okay, and then let's add a payment just like we did before. But now instead of that payment coming from the patient, it's actually going to come from insurance. So where it says Radiator Springs, who is Mater's responsible party, we're going to change that to Liberty Dental. Perfect. Now you notice it opens up to give us some different options here. So at this point, you can just add that $168 if that's what insurance paid. And you can go ahead and say okay and let it allocate the way that it's allocating here. Okay? If insurance did not pay what we expected on something, or if they paid differently than what the line items show here, you'll have your EOB in front of you. If you notice over on the right-hand side, your payment amounts are in blue. So you can change those. So if insurance applied a deductible to the pro fee unexpectedly, you can go ahead and change that payment amount. And then you can also apply a deductible down in the middle section on the bottom of this invoice. Okay. So it doesn't give you that option whenever you're adding in just a patient payment, because that's not necessarily by line item. They're paying on an invoice. But insurances do pay by line item, so just know that you can change that. Now, if you are entering just the 168, what will basically happen is Curve will allocate that money from top to bottom. Okay, so if it's a $200 payment on a $400 charge, it'll start at the top, add in money until it gets to 200, and then all of the procedures below $200 will just have a zero on them.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So now you can go ahead and say okay. All right, so now you notice your insurance payment is in there with your invoice as well. Again, it's not somewhere random on the screen. It's all nice and tidy in that same blue section with your invoice and the claim, the payment that belongs to that claim.
Okay.
Okay, and now your invoice shows as paid. Now, one thing that's really cool with these invoices is if you notice right beside your invoice number, there's a little yellow circle with a blue eye. Go ahead and click on that. That's your superhero calculator. And what this does is it basically breaks things down a little bit further. So I know that you have a pretty good hold on how insurances and fee schedules and things work. I don't know how much experience you have kind of upfront with your patients in the office, but patients all the time want actual solid proof that they owe whatever it is that they owe. Okay. Yeah. So this is really cool because your front office will be able to click on the superhero calculator, and this basically says everything that your invoice says. It just breaks it down a little bit further. So if you notice over on the left, you have your procedures. Then you have your insurance companies listed there, so you can tell patient, okay, Liberty Dental looks like they're going to pay this much on your exam, and they're going to pay this much on your bite wings and this much on your prophy, okay? And then it'll go all the way across. In the patient section, the next big blue section, there's a deductible estimate. So if the system is estimating that a deductible will be applied, that will show there. If a deductible actually was applied once you get the insurance payment, it will also reflect there. Okay. So it just breaks things down into really good detail so that you can just really thoroughly explain to patients where their balances are coming from and what exactly it is that they're paying for.
Okay.
Okay. Now you'll notice that up at the top of this the patient box in the superhero calculator, it says patient less adjustments. What that means is if you've told this patient that you're going to give them a 5% cash discount, that is not going to reflect in the superhero calculator.
Okay.
Okay. It'll show on the invoice. You can put notes. You'll be able to plainly see your adjustment, but that adjustment that you add in is not going to show here. Same thing goes for insurance. If this is an insurance company that you're not in network with, it's going to look like, or I'm sorry, that you are in network with. Okay. Somebody that you are in network with, it's going to look like patient has a balance. So it's not going to show that, hey, the remaining balance is a write-off for insurance. There's no way to show that in Curve.
Okay.
Okay. Now, what typically happens with that is offices, depending on what software they're coming from and how they're used to doing things, sometimes they're okay with it. Sometimes it's a little bit concerning for them. And so it kind of launches into a discussion about, well, how do we know when we're doing write-offs? How are we going to explain that to our patients? If your patients have a portal, they'll be able to see their balances in their portal. What if that's not a true patient balance? What if it's an insurance write-off? Okay. Now, I've worked in offices where we've been out of network with insurance or in network with insurance companies, and we're waiting on the payment in order to do a write-off. And it's usually pretty simple to just tell the patient, hey, I printed your receipt. You might see a balance there on the bottom. Don't worry about that until we get insurance payment. If you owe anything else, we'll let you know. Patients typically are okay with that. But when you add in the element of them being able to go home and check their balances online, now they might not remember that front desk told them that, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and they've been drinking whiskey all night and they don't know why they owe you $45. They could call and leave some pretty nasty voicemails, right?
Right.
So just something to think about here as far as how the billing goes. You can, and of course, you can put write-offs for insurance amounts. You can write off the difference between an insurance amount and your office fees, but you won't do that until you actually get the insurance payment back. So for that time that you're waiting on the insurance payment, that balance is going to be hanging out on your patient's billing account here.
Okay. I get, there's so many things with like, and I guess maybe it's because it could be different in general dentistry, or it just could be different overall. But I don't know. I hear a lot of things about unhappy pay. Like we just live in a different world now. It's like I just feel like we as practitioners, it's like customer service is above and beyond anything else in terms of understanding the patient, having them trust you, and making everything fully transparent. And you save yourself so much heartache by just explaining things to them.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's what I usually tell offices again with that conversation with your patients too. Instead of just handing them their receipt and pretending like it doesn't say that they still have a balance, it's much better in the office to go ahead and address it and say, hey, here's your receipt. You're all paid up. If insurance pays everything we expect them to, you're good to go. If you owe anything else, we'll let you know, but don't worry about this balance on here right now.
Right.
And patients, 98% of the time, people are fine with that. You do sometimes, occasionally, have the really special patients that either don't really have a good understanding, or they like to just hang on to details like that, and it's just hard to work with them sometimes. And you might have to repeat yourself, and you might have to field a few of those phone calls, especially if their receipt shows that they made their payment but they still have a balance. But that's actually really few and far between. The majority of people are pretty reasonable and level-headed, and they'll understand.
Right, exactly. Now, you were mentioning the integration with is there something with the integration with Bluefin that translates into the patient portal that no other, like if I got a separate credit card processing company, wouldn't necessarily do that for me?
Yes. So with Bluefin, they'll be able to see their balances, and they'll be able to pay their balances online.
Got it.
If you go with a different credit card company, they won't be able to do that.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. All right. Now, if you start doing this, doctor, and you see that you don't necessarily want those balances on your patient's billing modules, that's okay. Many offices have come to that conclusion. You can change that in Curve. Okay. More commonly, you'll go ahead and charge you'll charge your fees. You'll have your balance that's hanging out on your billing module until the insurance payment comes in. Once the insurance payment comes in, you post the payment, you do your write-off, everything's good. Okay? If patients still owe something, you send them a statement. If not, you send them a smiley face on a Post-it note. Now, if that does not work for you, you can change up the way that you're applying your fee guides in the profile and in the insurance setup, so that you're actually charging the patient the same fees as the insurance, so that you don't ever see those balances.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, that eliminates the need for write-offs. But when you do that, you are not able to see what you're writing off for each procedure. And that's a big thing with doctors. In particular, I think especially if they're a little bit more far removed from the front office and the financial part of things, they like to be able to go on and see, how much did I write off today? How much have I written off this month with my Delta patients or with my MetLife patients? So when you match up the fee guides to where you don't have the balances on your billing, you're not able at that point to easily generate a report that says this is how much you've written off. Okay? And some doctors really want that report, and that's okay. But if that's not where your concern is, if your concern is more along the lines of, I would rather my patients not log in and see that they have a balance if they don't, I'd rather not have to have that conversation with them about how we're waiting on insurance and we're going to write this off and they could possibly get confused, then you would just match up the fee guides so that the fee guides for the insurance that the patient has are the same fees that you're charging the patient. Okay. And then all of your insurance estimates are accurate. They pay their portion and you're done.
Right.
Okay. So just know that there are both ways to do this, and I work with offices that choose to do it both ways. I can't say one is better than the other. I have actually worked in offices where I've been in a position to need to explain the insurance stuff to a patient and insurance write-offs to patients. And I, in my personal experience, don't think that it's really all that difficult. However, it really depends on if you want to be able to check how much you're writing off, then you'll want to keep the write-offs and you'll have to have that conversation with your patients.
Okay.
If you don't really care how much you're writing off because you're in network with who you're in network with, it's much easier for everybody involved to just go ahead and make your fee guides match up. That even includes when you're hiring new staff in the front. If you get someone that maybe doesn't have quite as much experience, they could easily look at a billing account and say, oh yeah, you still owe $240, when really that's coming from insurance. That's a common and easy mistake to make.
Okay.
Okay, so just things to think about, especially through training as we're working with this. You can kind of see how it works, and then you can make a decision based off of what's best for your office specifically. Okay? All right, so we can go ahead and say okay on this. Do you have any questions so far about posting insurance payments or posting patient payments?
Nope. Not, so is there anything different if I'm going to, like, once you get the first check-in, then you submit it to secondary?
When you submit it, so let's go ahead and play that out here since he does have a secondary insurance. So now we got the payment back from the primary. Actually, this actually isn't a good example because insurance paid for everything. So here you wouldn't really submit to secondary.
Right. So you want to use an example of, like, a filling?
Yeah, let's go ahead and make him an appointment with some treatment. That way we generate some additional cost. Can you hear my baby in the background?
No, not yet.
I just heard him say, Mama, Mama.
That's awesome.
He's not by himself, I promise. He's with his father.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so let's go ahead and finalize that. And then we'll check him in and we'll check him out. And we'll see what this looks like. Okay, perfect. Yep, so here we're going to go ahead and say everything looks good. And let's send an e-claim. Now you'll notice, and of course this box, it irritates me. It messes with my OCD that these invalid things pop up. Okay, so you see your invoice there. The balance is $197. Mm-hmm. Insurance should pay $152. Patient should pay $44.50. Mm-hmm. Now, depending on how you operate in your practice, are you going to have patients go ahead and pay that balance and then have a credit once their secondary pays? Or are you just going to say the secondary should pay for all that? We'll let you know if you owe anything.
I'll probably submit it to secondary and then I'll let them know.
Awesome. Okay. So then at this point, patient would not pay anything at all. We've submitted the insurance claim here. So now let's say that we got that payment back from the primary. So let's right click, add a payment. Remember, that's coming from insurance. That's the biggest thing that people forget. Where do I put it that it's from insurance? It's that patient name. Okay. And let's see here. We're going to change the $44.50. Insurance should be paying $152.50. Okay, and then go ahead and say okay. Perfect. So now the balance is $44.50. It still shows that it's patient, but it's not because we have a secondary. So we're going to right click again. And now we're going to go down to the third little set of lines there where it says send secondary to batch, send secondary advance claim. Okay. And probably what you would do here is you would send a manual claim because you would want to attach your primary EOB to the claim. Unless you do something like NEA, and honestly, I'm not sure how that works with attaching secondary or attaching primary EOBs. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but you'd have to find out through NEA and if you don't already know how to do that.
Yeah, that I don't. I know I have to get an NEA number.
Yeah, and it's to send attachments, which technically a primary EOB would be an attachment. So I'm assuming you could send it electronically, but again, I don't want to tell you that and then that not be the case.
Got it. And now the NEA that works with Curve, right? When I'm submitting e-claims? Okay.
Yep. So actually, let's go ahead and click on Send Secondary Advanced Claim, because if you have NEA, this is what you'll do. You're going to send an advanced claim, and it's going to pull up this advanced claim box here. And yep, that's exactly right. It has the little check mark that says Add Attachments. Now, when you have NEA, it'll give you some extra options there to go ahead and pull the attachment that you're adding, whether it's a perio chart or an x-ray or some other type of supporting information. I'm assuming that also works with primary EOBs as well. Okay. Let's look at what this says here, because we were going to review it anyways. If you click on the triangle next to line items, that just tells you what's inside of the claim. Okay. And then click on the triangle next to advanced options. Here's where you can put a predetermination number if you have one. You can choose a special program. You can put a prior authorization number if you have one of those. The biggest section here that people use is down at the bottom where it says note. That's where you're going to put your narrative. Okay. So if you visualize an actual paper claim form where the narrative goes, that's what's going to go. Whatever you put in this note is going to go there.
Okay.
Okay, you can say if services are for orthodontic purposes, yes or no. And then if you'll click on the triangle next to related causes and go ahead and say add. And this gives you options in the event that the treatment is due to an accident. So sometimes that matters with dental insurance. Sometimes they have like emergency dental care. So maybe the insurance wouldn't typically cover these procedures, but in an emergency they would. And so you can add in, if this is related to an accident, you can put in information about that accident as well. All of these fields are fields that are actually on a paper form. So you're basically just filling out a paper form electronically.
Okay.
Okay. If there isn't anything, you can still just go ahead and say send to batch. Some offices actually set their computers up in Curve where it automatically goes to that send advanced claim and pay option. And if it's not an advanced claim, that's okay. You can just still say send to batch. You don't have to put anything in there.
Got it.
Okay, so go ahead and click on send to batch for me. And yep, of course, with the invalid message. Okay, so now when we look at our invoice, we see our invoice number up at the top. We see our claim for Liberty Dental. We see a payment from Liberty Dental. And then we see our claim for Delta. So we have our primary claim and our secondary claim listed there. Okay. If you sent a claim manually, I would say it would probably be good practice to right click and put a note just saying, you know, primary EOB attached to manual claim or something like that. And you would actually click up on the invoice line where we've been clicking to add a payment.
What happened there?
If you double click on it, it opens up to this weird screen. You can just close out of it.
That was weird. Boom. What am I doing? Add note?
Yeah, down at the bottom. There you go.
And then...
Okay. I would just say primary EOB attached to secondary claim or something like that. And you'll notice that's already tagged as billing, so you can just save it there. And you'll be able to see your note also in that blue section with this invoice. So some practice management softwares are ledger-based, where they start at zero balance, and you go through and add procedures, add charges, add payments until you get down to an ending balance of zero or an amount that the patient owes. I actually really like this way better, this invoiced balance billing, because when you do it that way, you have to dig through. With the ledger balance, you have to kind of dig through to see, okay, this payment goes to which date, which procedures, and you have to look all through the screen. Here, everything's all together. So it'll always be all together. Everything that's attached to this invoice will be all in the same section.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions about that at all?
Nope.
All right, perfect. Now you'll notice down at the bottom where that account summary section is, it is showing a balance here of $884. Now again, if you look up in the invoices, you'll be able to see where those balances are coming from. So you have some invoices that say a balance of $168. Some of them were waiting on insurance. Some patient still owes. You have some invoices that are paid off. And then you have that invoice with the secondary that it is still showing as a patient balance, but that's because we're waiting on a secondary. And you can see your note there as well that says that we'd sent a secondary claim.
Okay.
Is that pretty easy to read for you? Like, are you having an okay time looking at that and distinguishing what's paid, what comes from patient, what comes from insurance?
Yeah, it seems pretty straightforward.
Okay. All right. Now, again, this might be a little bit different. Whenever you start hiring staff, they might need a little bit of training or extra help to kind of learn how to read this. I've noticed that people that come over from like Dentrix or something like that, it's a little bit harder for them to, if I was just to say, explain this billing module to me, explain where the patient balances are coming from, it's kind of harder for them to actually see where that is because they're not used to reading it this way. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay. Okay. Now, let's see. Let's go ahead and switch patients. So let's try to pull up Candlestick. Okay, we have Candlestick here. Can you click on the triangle next to his insurance and see if there's insurance there? Awesome. Okay. So for Candlestick, we're going to go back to his, let's actually go to our schedule and let's create a couple of appointments for him. Let's say that he comes in and he has a filling or he has a cleaning done and then he has a filling done with you all on the same day. And actually, let's put that in 2 separate appointments. I want to show you how to combine insurance claims for multiple invoices. Sorry, I guess I could have told you that, huh?
That's okay. Okay. And then same day or another day?
But we can do it the same day just to keep it easy. Okay, perfect. Now let's go ahead and check both of these in, and then we'll go through the process to check both of them out. Of course, each time we check out, it's going to take us over to billing, so we'll just say okay and come back and check the next one out.
I don't even know what day today. What day did I pick?
Go to today. I think you went to today, didn't you?
No, I think it was like the first. Maybe it was the.
So go over to the sidekick and you can click on the triangle next to the word appointments.
Yay.
There you go. August 2nd. And that's September.
Oops. There we go.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Let me click
All
OK.
right. Yep, let's go ahead and say okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so now if we needed to send claims for these 2 procedures, now maybe you have one appointment over with your hygienist and one appointment's over with you. So in that case, Candlestick would have 2 separate invoices, right? He'd have one for his hygienist, one with the doctor. Mm-hmm. So at that point, you would want to go ahead and combine these so that you're only sending one claim. Or let's say that you're going to send only certain procedures on a claim. So go ahead and go up to the very top of the screen where it says create a new transaction and click on the blue word transaction. And we're going to say claim. And now if you click on each of these invoices, they will expand and it'll show you the procedures that are listed within the invoice. So go ahead and click on both of them to open them up. There's that one. Very good. So let's say that we're not going to send the nitrous because we know the insurance won't cover it. And we're not going to send the bite wings because we took them, but they're a little bit not eligible yet. Okay, we took them too soon.
Okay.
So we're going to click on the evaluation and the prophy and the filling, and we're going to say proceed. Now here's that advanced claims box again. If you're not sure, if it's a new staff member and you just want to double check what's going out on the claims, yes, exactly. You're going to click on line items, and that'll show you exactly what's inside of this claim. So now you just sent a claim for 2 different invoices. They could even be on different days, although most of the time that doesn't happen because you usually send your claims right away. But you can send line items from 2 different invoices or 3 or 4, no matter how many you have, and you can pick and choose what goes out on your claim, and it'll all go all at one time in one claim. Okay? So from this point, you'll just go ahead and say send to batch. And now you'll notice that there are claims listed underneath both of those invoices because you sent items from both invoices.
Got it.
Okay. Now, if you were going to go through and make patient payments, you would just right-click on each invoice, make the payments of $33.60 and $30.40 separately so that you're paying on each invoice. You probably would run the credit card for only one amount unless you were using Bluefin, at which time you could just open up the invoice and click on make payment, swipe the card, and the payment will go directly into the invoice.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions about that?
Nope.
Okay. Now, let's say that Candlestick, so he got that filling done, but you told him that he might really just need to come in and have a full evaluation because it looks like he needs to have some extra stuff done, and he just got his taxes back, so he wants to prepay. Okay? He wants to go ahead and put some money on his account, anticipating that he's going to need that money to pay for some treatment a little bit later in the year. Mm-hmm. Now, account credits in Curve are called deposits. Okay, so in order to post a deposit on an account, you're going to click again on transaction up at the top of the screen, and you're going to click on deposit. Now it's saying that it's being deposited by Candlestick for a certain provider, so you can choose which provider that's going to go to. Okay, by payment type, again, go ahead and just choose Visa. And let's say that he's going to pay $500. Perfect. And then go ahead and say finalize. Okay, so now you'll see the deposit there. It's not attached to any invoice. It's in its own section. And down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see that he has a credit balance of $500. Now, if you look over in his account summary, the balance that's listed there is $25.77. That was the balance that was there before you posted this deposit. Okay, so even though he made a payment, it did not pay for anything on his account.
Okay.
Now, the reason for that is that Curve is not going to automatically assume that this patient wants to use this money for any of his previous balances. So if at some point he comes in and he says, you know, I was going to do that treatment this year, but I really just feel like I need to pay this other stuff off first. I don't really like being in debt. Okay. At that point, you can go through the invoices and apply money from his deposit, but you're going to have to do it manually. Curve's not going to look at this and say, oh, well, he has $500 on his account. Let's pay off all these invoices.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's actually a really good thing. When I worked in an office, I was a treatment coordinator, and all the time people would have implants done. Implants are extremely expensive, and so they would prepay, and this was happening very commonly. And what I noticed as I did these more and more is that if they prepaid and then they had other treatment done, and instead of paying for that treatment separately, they used their credits on their account to pay for like a crown that they had done in the middle of their implant process, they would get confused because at the end of everything, you would tell them, well, you owe $1,500. And in their head, they were thinking, I've already paid for that. I prepaid.
Oh, okay.
not realizing that this has been a 9-month span of treatment. And yes, you did prepay, but you also had this and this and this done throughout the year that you pulled money from that prepayment to pay for.
Got it.
So I really like the fact that Curve keeps this separate for that reason, because at that time it opens up the dialogue with your patient to say, okay, Candlestick, you have this $500 on here. Do you want to use that to pay for your filling, or are you going to pay for that separately? And now it's Candlestick's responsibility to decide whether he wants to use that prepayment or whether he's going to actively make a new payment for his new treatment.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Once I ran into that a couple of times, I started telling everyone in the front, like, okay, when this patient comes in, they need to pay today. Don't let them say they want to use their credit, because if they use their credit, they're going to forget.
Right.
And if they forget, now we're sitting in consult for 2 hours talking about their finances, when really all of that could have been avoided if we just wouldn't have pulled from their credit to begin with.
Gotcha.
So I tend to kind of leave that stuff a little bit sacred for that reason.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So now let's say that he does want to use his credit, okay? So let's say that scenario, he comes in, he was going to get some stuff done, but he sees that he has a pretty big balance. And so he's just going to use his credit for that. In order to apply his credit, you're going to right-click. So let's use invoice number 280, that balance of $30.40. And we're going to add a payment. And where it says payment type, you'll notice that there's also the blue bubble there showing that he does have a credit of $500. Go ahead and click on payment type for me. And we're going to choose account credit. So now you're telling the system, okay, we're taking this money from his credit. So at this point, you can go ahead and say, okay. His payment is made, it's in with his invoice, and his credit on file is reduced by that payment amount.
Got it.
Okay, but again, notice that you had to actively put in account credit. It didn't just automatically apply it.
Okay.
If he has something else done from here on out, it will not automatically apply it. It will still say that he owes a balance, and then at that point you can ask him, do you want to use your credit, or are you paying for this separately?
Okay.
Okay? Any questions about how that works?
No, very straightforward.
Okay, awesome. Let's see. What if we wanted to, what if Candlestick was just a really awesome patient and we're feeling generous, so we want to go ahead and we're going to write off his $33.60 from that other invoice from his cleaning.
Mm-hmm.
We took those bite wings a little bit early anyway, so we're just going to write that off for him. Okay? In order to do that, you're going to right-click on the invoice, and you're going to say Add Adjustment. Perfect. Now, it's going to give you the option of a credit adjustment or a debit adjustment. A credit adjustment is going to add money back into the patient's account. Okay, so you're giving money back to them. A debit adjustment is taking money away from them. So if you're charging some sort of fee, such as a return check fee or something along those lines, that would be a debit adjustment. But since we're giving him money back and we're writing off his balance, we're going to keep that as a credit adjustment. Now, you have some types that are preloaded into Curve. I think you'll have these in your live database too. Mm-hmm. I'm going to show you where to go into an administration to kind of cultivate this list and customize it a little bit. Right now, this is what we have to choose from. So let's go ahead and just say professional courtesy for him. Now it's going to ask you dollars, or you can change that to say percents. So just the same as we're writing off his balance, if you told the front desk, give him a 10% discount. He's been a patient of mine for a long time. Okay, they could then change that to percent, put in 10, and it'll do the math for them.
Got it.
But for now, let's leave it as dollars. Okay, and click on your zeros, and it's $33.60 that we're writing off for him. That's perfect. Okay, so now if you look at his invoice, you see that we did the adjustment for $33.60, which was his patient portion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it still shows that he has a patient portion.
That's weird.
This confused me too for a good month when I first started with Curve. Okay, so here's what's going on. Curve takes Go ahead and open up that invoice for me. Now, the adjustment that we made was an invoice adjustment, meaning we right-clicked on the invoice and we made an adjustment to the total invoice. What Curve did was they took that $33.60 that we wrote off and they split it evenly between the line items. Okay?
Okay.
So they took the money and they split it through the line items, and once they got to the end of that $33.60, it moved some of the insurance amount over to the patient. So that's why we still have a residual balance. Okay, so I know that that sounds very convoluted and it confused me just greatly for a long time, but basically it took away the patient amount until it got to the end of the amount that we were writing off, and then it took some from the insurance estimate and moved it on to the patient to even out per line item.
Okay.
So it's not taking $33.60 by each line item until it runs out of $33.60. It is taking $33.60 from the total amount of the invoice. Okay? So if that was $30, it would be $10 per line. But since it was not an even amount, now you still have a little bit of a patient balance there.
Got it.
Okay, you can rectify this. So let's take a look at, let's see. Let's add in another invoice for him. We'll do the exact same procedures. So go up to create a new transaction. Yep, an invoice. And let's add in a periodic oral evaluation, 4 bite wings, and a prophy.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and say okay. Okay, now we have our balance 151. Insurance should pay 120.80. Patient is 30.20. So instead of right-clicking and just making an invoice adjustment, we're going to actually make the adjustment by line item. So right-click on each line item. And say add adjustment. This one will be $7. Okay. This one's going to be 11.20. And then this one's going to be 12.
Okay.
Okay, so now you notice that it did write off the total patient amount.
Got it.
So do you see the difference between doing those there?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I mean whenever I say that Curve isn't really, it's not really set up to do things like write-offs and insurance adjustments and things like that because of this reason. Because for every single adjustment that you would do before the insurance payment came in, you would have to go in by line item and make those adjustments, which could be really time consuming. Now, if insurance had already paid and it was just a flat patient portion, it would take the patient portion. But because there's still a balance that's being owed, that's why it's moving the numbers around the way that it is.
Okay.
Okay? So if you're making an adjustment or you're doing a write-off before the insurance is paid, before the invoice is settled, then you'll want to do it by line item. If you're doing this after the insurance is paid, then you can just right-click and make an invoice adjustment to write off the remaining balance.
Okay. Now let's say you made the professional courtesy. Let's say I did it the other way and it shows that there's a patient balance of 420, and then I'm like, you know what, I want to do it this way. It's much better. How do you go back and remove a professional courtesy that you just gave them? How do you remove something you've added?
Right-click on any of those adjustments that we just did.
So like this one.
Mm-hmm.
Oops.
And it might not be letting you. Okay, right click on your invoice. Well, you can void your invoice and you can void payments. Right click on your payment. That account credit payment that we did to 284.
So you want me to void it or?
No, go ahead and go up to invoice 280 and that payment 284 that we did from the account credit. It's like 5 lines down from where you're at now. Right above the deposit.
Oh, here. Oh, here. Yeah. Void payment.
So you can void your payment.
Got it.
Hang on, let me see if I have any notes about how to take off an adjustment.
Yeah, well,
I don't know if you would have to do it.
Yeah.
Voiding your payment, yeah. I don't know if you would have to do a debit adjustment to add that money back on. You know, do the same type of adjustment just as a debit adjustment, or if there's an actual way to void it.
Okay.
I guess nobody's ever asked me that.
Huh.
See, now I'm learning stuff. How about that?
See?
Give me just a second, okay? I'm just going to look through my notes here and see if I have anything. Do you have any questions about anything else while I'm looking this up?
Nope.
Okay, so it looks like, go ahead and click on any of those adjustments. And then hover over the line item, and you have a trash can on the right.
Oh.
See, that was just too simple. That's why I didn't know.
Here we go. Like that.
That's perfect. So that's how you delete an adjustment if you made one by mistake.
Yeah, so you could just do this and then.
If Candlestick comes in and he makes you mad and you decide you actually want
Yeah, exactly.
you actually want him to pay his balance after all.
Nice.
Okay. Any other questions about anything so far?
Nope.
Okay. Now, thinking in terms of those adjustments, let's go ahead and go up into administration. And then click on procedures and fees for me. And click on adjustment types. Okay, now keeping in mind we're in your training database, okay? So you'll need to go in and do this in your live database. If you want to go ahead and get logged into your live database to get these set up now, we can. If you need to think about what this list needs to be like, then you can do it on your own. I'm good with whatever, but I just wanted to show you where these were. So basically, you can create as many adjustments in here as you need to. So I know that you'll have a Medicaid adjustment. Did you say you were going to be out of network with all the other insurances besides Medicaid?
Right now, yes, but who knows?
Okay, so in the event that you're in network with any other insurances later on, what you'll do is you'll create a credit adjustment for each insurance that you're in network with or writing off money for. So if you're in network with, if you take Medicaid and you're in network with MetLife and Delta Dental, you'll create credit adjustments that will say Medicaid write-off, Delta Dental write-off, MetLife write-off.
Okay.
Okay, you don't have to put a default value. So you see that under the default value column, some of those are 0, some of them have an amount. You don't have to put one. Of course, with insurance write-offs, you won't know. It's going to change every time. But if you put it in here, then when front desk goes to make that write-off, they'll be able to easily track, okay, we did a write-off on MetLife, we did a write-off on Delta Dental.
Okay.
Okay? You can also use this for any kind of adjustments that you do here. So adjustments that give money back to patients include things like friends and family discounts, senior discounts, military discounts, things of like that you might want to say, okay, for any military personnel, we're going to automatically give them a 10% discount. At that point, you would create an adjustment, a credit adjustment. You would call it military discount, and then you would put in, instead of $% and put in 10. Then when front desk has someone that's in the military in your office and they want to apply that adjustment, they'll very easily just right click, create the adjustment, and it'll already be set with 10%. And they just say, okay.
Okay. So like if I have a membership program, that would be one thing, where if I'm doing like 25% off my UCR fees.
Yes, the same thing. That's going to be a credit adjustment.
Okay.
Okay. Debit adjustments are things like there's one in there for error. So that's a good one in case you need to charge the patient for something once an invoice is closed and you can't edit it. Okay. So if you realize that you took a PA and your assistant broke up with her boyfriend last night and just forgot to put the PA in because her mind is elsewhere.
Typical.
At that point, yeah, isn't it? At that point, you can go ahead and do a debit adjustment. You can call it error. Put in your $27 or however much you're charging for your PA, okay? And then put a note saying this adjustment for PA not entered before invoice was finalized or something like that.
Okay.
If you don't do it that way, you can still change your invoice, but once it's finalized, you have to actually void it and create a whole new one. Okay, so it's almost more work, especially if it's for something small like a PA. Okay?
Okay.
Other debit adjustments, you have an insufficient funds fee there, so that's one. Things like missed appointment fees, if you're going to be charging any sort of missed appointment fees. Something else that most offices don't think about is sales tax. If you're selling any kind of actual, like, tangible things in your office, Sonicare toothbrushes, fluoride rinses, anything like that, are you going to be charging sales tax? If you are, you can create a debit adjustment based off of the sales tax in your state.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense.
Now, I've worked in many offices where we've sold many, many things, and I've never, ever charged a patient for sales tax. I don't know why. I guess I never even considered it until I started doing these trainings and realized that lots of offices do. But that's not something that you have to do, is my point. Like, if it's something that you're going to do, that's fine. You can go ahead and create a debit adjustment, but don't feel like, oh, okay, well, now I have to put in a sales tax and charge my patients that. You don't have to do that. Okay? Okay. Any questions about that at all?
Nope.
Do you want to practice putting one in? Like, maybe let's go ahead and put in a military adjustment here and as a credit adjustment, just so that you get a feel for how to do it. Or if you already know what you're going to be adjusting, we can do this in your live database and you can go ahead and get the list set up.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so go ahead and get logged into your live database. And of course, you can always come in and change things in here as well, so don't worry about that at all. Okay, so back to administration, and then it's under procedures and fees and adjustment types.
Okay.
Okay, so you have the same ones in here that you did in your training. So what you did was right. You're going to click on create an adjustment. Now you're going to specify whether it's credit or debit.
So let's just do membership.
Okay. Now it's going to ask you.
There might be several types, but
that's okay. You can create as many of these as you need. Perfect. And then now you'll click there and put in your percentage.
Okay.
And then it says active. You'll want to go ahead and activate that. If you ever don't use that anymore, you can come in and inactivate it. It'll still be here, but it won't show up on the list anymore, so front desk won't have to sort through it.
Okay, got it.
Sometimes I do this with doctors, and I'm giving it ideas, like military or
right.
over like a senior discount. And the doctors I work with most doctors are just so nice, and they're like, yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. I'm like, okay.
That sounds great.
You don't have to write off everything. It's okay.
Here's a good one. Let's see. Oops.
Good neighbor discount.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. That's a big discount too.
Oh yeah.
Now, what about a cash discount? If patients prepay with cash, are you going to give them a discount for that or not?
Sure. I would probably put cash prepay.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
That one's usually like 5%, typically.
I'll switch this to 10. I was a little too nice. Okay.
All right, and then as far as debit adjustments, are you going to be charging anything like sales tax or missed appointment fees, or you have an insufficient funds fee in there? Is that something you're going to apply and charge, or do you want to inactivate that one?
Oh, that's good. Debit adjustment, that I don't know. I mean, sales tax will just be on inventory items, but it'll
Right,
always be an option, right?
right.
So I would probably add another one, right? Debit adjustment, sales tax.
Yep, you can do that. And do you know your sales tax for Kentucky?
I think it's 6%. Let me see.
I could Google it too while you're putting that in.
Wait, here, I got it. Let's see, sales tax in Kentucky. You probably will get it quicker than me because this is slow. 6%.
6%. Yep. Oh, did we get it at the same time?
We did. There we go. Okay.
Okay. What about missed appointment fees? Are you charging those?
I mean, always have the option to do it.
Okay. So that would be under debit adjustment as well.
And then Medicaid adjustment.
Yep, let's go ahead and put in the Medicaid adjustment. Good idea. So I would call it Medicaid write-off.
And there's really, I won't know what the dollar amount is, so, because.
Yep, you can just leave that at 0.
Okay.
Okay, does that look pretty good?
That looks pretty good.
Okay, now keep in mind you can always come in and change this list. You can add to it or you can inactivate anything that you're not using. Okay? While we're in here and in your live database, let's go ahead and go to inventory items. That's listed right above adjustment types. And this is where you're going to put in anything that you might sell. So if you're going to sell supplements or toothpaste or Sonicare toothbrushes or water picks, Debacterol. I mean, offices sell all kinds of stuff. So are you going to have anything like that that you'll be selling to your patients?
Yeah, I'm going to have a lot of vitamins and supplements and then also Sonicares and stuff.
Okay, so this is where you're going to put that in. Let's go ahead and add one in for now, just so that you can see how to do it. And then you can always come back in and add in whatever you'd like. So you're going to double click on new item. And then type in the name of the item.
Do I have a? I actually have a. Let's see if I have a form. actually see what I would add. There's one. Okay. It's a chewable multivitamin. It's good for kids.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, well, it's all the products are standard process. It's the company I work that they only sell through healthcare professionals. So all
okay.
the vitamins and supplements. Kettle and chewable. Okay.
And you don't have to put a description unless you want to. So if you know what that is and your staff's going to know what that is, you can leave it just like that. If you want a description, you can put one. The description, these inventory items are searchable in your procedure search box.
Okay.
So the description will come up in the description in that procedure search box. I can hear my baby loud. Are you sure you can't hear him?
I can't hear. Okay.
Perfect.
Actually, here. I'm sure I'll adjust these to make it all standardized, but. And then, let's see.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so that's how you enter in inventory items. Again, you can enter in as many of those as you need to, and they do show up in that procedure search box, which means when you're putting together treatment plans and you're talking to mom and dad and you have an extensive treatment plan for a patient and you feel like one of these inventory items would help your patient, mom and dad says yes, you can go ahead and chart that, put it in their treatment plan so that it's presented to them financially up front when they do the rest of their treatment planning.
Okay.
Okay, so anything like that that you're going to sell, go ahead and put it in the list. Even if you end up never using it, at least it's in there if you need it. Okay. The last thing we're going to look at here is payment types. So go ahead and click on payment types for me. It's the second option from the top, right under billing configuration. Okay, so this is where we were selecting the payment types in billing. This is that list here, okay? So if you want to, if you take all of these different payment types, you can leave them as active. If there's anything that you don't take, a common one is Discover. Lots of offices don't take Discover. You can inactivate that so that it does not show up on your list. So go ahead and look through there. Also, some offices have started doing direct deposit from their insurance companies. So instead of getting an insurance check, they're getting direct deposit payments from insurances.
Okay.
If that's the case, you might want to add in a payment type for insurance direct deposit. So just different things like that, you can go ahead and add in and remove as necessary.
Okay.
All right, anything else that needs to change on here?
Nope.
Awesome. Okay, so now we've customized those. I would make a little note just to go in and finish entering your inventory items before you go live with your software, okay?
Okay.
Okay, now if you'll go ahead and head back over to your training database. Okay, and then let's click on Candlesticks Billing again. Now, so far we've covered, let's see, we've covered making a manual invoice, we've covered how to read the invoices from appointments, entering patient and insurance payments, creating adjustments. We found out how to delete an adjustment, which was an adventure.
That was fun.
That was fun. Patient prepayments. Do you have any questions about any of that so far?
Nope.
Okay. Now I'm sorry to take you back and forth, but I'm going to have you go back into administration. I just remembered that we put my son Braxton in and we attached him to Medicaid.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and create the write-off for Medicaid. It's under procedures and fees. And we'll run through a scenario that way you can see what this really looks like, okay?
Okay.
And adjustment types.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, so let's go to today.
Oh, you want to do it for Braxton?
Yeah, let's go ahead and choose Braxton over in the sidekick. Awesome. And just drag and drop anywhere. Go ahead and make him an appointment.
Okay.
Okay, and let's do this for some treatment. I don't remember the details of the Medicaid that we set up. I don't remember how we set that up, but we'll see how it looks. So go ahead and let's do it for some treatment for him.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, go ahead and say okay. Braxton needs to do a better job at brushing, that's for sure.
It's really the juice he's been drinking. I'm gonna have to get in touch with his mom because she says that it's not juice, but it's the brushing. But I'm almost confident it's the juice.
Well, see, we're Cajun, so it's actually the coffee he drinks with me in the morning.
There you go.
All right.
That's awesome.
So let's go ahead and check him in. Perfect. And let's check him out. We'll see what this invoice looks like. Now, of course, it's going to depend on the details we put in insurance, but let's just see. Oh, man, and he doesn't have a portion. I was hoping he would. Okay, so let's go over to insurance. Before we finalize this, go ahead and go over to insurance. And double-click on his insurance there to get into the details of it. And go to edit plan for me. So with Medicaid, yeah, that's why. Because with Medicaid, since it pays off of a fee schedule, it'll be 100% of the fees. Okay, so when you look at it in here, it shows that everything is covered at 100%, which means your patient won't ever have a patient portion unless you are sending to Medicaid your office fees. But I think that you said you weren't going to be doing that, right? You have to send the Medicaid fees on your claims. Is that what we talked about before?
For Indiana, yeah.
For Indiana. So whenever you have anybody with this Indiana Medicaid, you can expect then that you won't have to actually do that write-off because the fees are going to match up. Now, if you had Medicaid fees in here, but on the patient's profile, you had your office fees, that's going to make a difference as far as what the insurance is pulling the fees from. So at that point, your patient would have a portion that you would need to write off.
Got it.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I wanted to show you how that write-off worked, but it doesn't look like
let's switch it. So
we only have the one fee guide in here.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, unless you wanted to go through and put in some fees, but that seems like it would be a little bit more complicated than.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Okay, so it's going to go off of the payment table, though. Remember that. So Medicaid's going to have their payment table, and it says 100% coverage, but that's 100% of their fees. Okay? So if their fee is $50 for a procedure that you charge $100 for, that means they're paying $50. Okay? They're not paying 100% of your fees, they're paying 100% of their own fees.
Right.
That's the difference with the fee schedules. In lots of ways, it makes it very easy because they tell you exactly what they're going to pay. But someone that doesn't have quite as much experience might look at this while they're on the phone with Braxton's mom and say, oh yeah, your insurance covers everything at 100%. Well, if this wasn't Medicaid, if it was something like Blue Cross Blue Shield that maybe you're out of network with, and mom ends up having a balance, she's going to wonder why, because somebody told her it was covered at 100%.
Got it.
The answer is it is covered at 100% of the fees that the insurance allows.
Right.
Okay, so it gets a little dicey there.
But like, see right here, it says plan information. So like, fee guide to send on claims. It really wouldn't be training fees, right? Because it's going to be
right. Those fees are going to match up
with with Medicaid.
With Medicaid. So the fee guide on the top would say Medicaid, and that fee guide on the bottom that you're on right now would also say Medicaid.
Got it.
At that time, there would be no patient balance because there's no difference in the fees that are being sent.
Got it.
But if it was something like Blue Cross Blue Shield, let's just use them for an example. If it was Blue Cross Blue Shield, the fee guide on the top would say Blue Cross Blue Shield because that's the fees that you're pulling from to make your estimates for insurance if you're in network with them.
Got it.
Okay?
But those sent down claims would be UCR.
Would be UCR, exactly, because you're wanting to send them your actual fees.
Right.
If it's Blue Cross Blue Shield and you're out of network with them, both the top fee guide and the bottom fee guide would say UCR.
Got it.
Because you're not estimating off of Blue Cross contract fees, you're not contracted with them.
Got it.
Okay, are you pretty clear on how that goes as far as like if you had to come in here and enter an insurance yourself and like you would know where everything went, you wouldn't have any questions about that at all?
Yeah, I think I got it.
Okay.
Just because I've done it, you know.
Right, and you do seem to have a little bit more experience than most doctors for sure. But that's a common thing that even trips up some people that work in the front desk in offices, and it really just depends on what their experience is with. Whether they've worked with Medicaid plans before, have they worked with in-network plans before? If they haven't, then it's all kind of a new concept. So,
right. Now,
okay.
Do you guys have most of the doctors go through all this training, or do they hand it off to their auxiliary staff quickly?
Most doctors do. 80% of doctors do.
Okay. Well, that's good. At least that's refreshing.
That is, yes. And it's always good to have the doctors on board, especially even with things like charting. You know, sometimes doctors will think, well, I have assistants to do my charting.
Uh-huh.
But they don't realize exactly what the charting entails, and so it makes it kind of hard for that working relationship. It's always so much better when the doctor's involved. So,
right.
Luckily, we do get that more oftentimes than not. Sometimes the staff takes control away from the doctor during the training, but they're still sitting there listening, so that's a good thing.
Right.
Okay. Now, any questions about anything we've reviewed in billing so far?
No.
Okay. The claims that we've been sending, let's go and look at where those are stored. We're not going to go into a whole lot of detail about those right now because we're going to do that in your next training.
Okay.
But you're probably wondering where you can see a list of all these claims we've been sending. So the claims are going to be under your More option. And you're going to click on All Claims. This is your claim screen here. Obviously, they all say invalid right now. Once you have your database up and running, we're going to come back into this list and look at it in your actual practice database so that we can make sure that claims are sending appropriately, that you're not having any issues. That's one of the first things I look for when we do the advanced sessions. I'll look immediately at this screen and say, why are there so many invalid Are you guys getting messages, error messages? Are you changing them? Like, what's going on? And usually it's something that they need some help with, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we will definitely check this, and just know that this is what we're going to kind of focus on the next training, is what this screen means. And we're going to do some insurance troubleshooting as well.
Okay.
Okay. Last thing we have to go over is reports. So doctor, if you can go ahead and click on your more option and go to reports for me. Now, I know I've told you this before, but reports is kind of hard in training before you go live because we don't have a lot to report on. But are you used to printing out certain types of reports at the end of the day? Is there something specific that you want to review or see from your staff? Like, what do you usually do as far as reporting goes in your office?
I used to do day sheets, like in terms of like what was the production for the day and what was,
Okay.
what was collected in cash, and what money came in and procedures done, things like that.
Okay, perfect. So we do have a report that will satisfy that for you. If you go ahead and click on financial reports for me, and then click on period summary. Okay, all of your reports are going to pull up in this format. Every single report that you click on is going to have a report filter at the top. Obviously, the filters will be different based off of the report that you're printing. So let's go ahead and leave this exactly as it is, and just up in the right-hand corner, click on Run Report. And now this will give you kind of exactly what a day sheet gives you. It's in a little bit of a different format depending on which softwares you're used to. But your procedures are up at the top by patient name. So if you're checking procedures for things like that PA that we were going to do on that patient earlier that we needed to add into the invoice, things like that to make sure that everything got added in correctly. If you're checking tooth numbers and tooth surfaces, this is a great place to do it. I know that's typically what my doctors use for the day sheet for. They'll go through and just make sure that all the procedures they did are in there.
Okay.
In the middle section, you have totals. So you'll have totals by provider. So right now we have doctor, training doctor, and the training hygienist. In your practice, you'll have yourself and any hygienist that you have underneath you. If you ever get an associate in the future, they'll be listed here as well, and it will track their production by provider. Okay? Down at the bottom, you have AR summaries. Now you notice you have two different columns here. You have one with account credits, and you have one without account credits. It changes your numbers whether you want to include those account credits or not. Now, the two schools of thought are, if a patient prepays, that money technically isn't allotted to anything. So it's not money that's currently in our AR because it's not attached to a procedure. Okay, so we don't want to see our production based off of that money that isn't actually going to anything yet. That's one way of thinking. The other way of thinking is, my AR in my practice includes every penny that I've taken in and every procedure that I've done. So I want to see a complete AR that includes everything that's been brought in and all the procedures that we've completed. Okay? With this having with and without, you basically get both here. So depending on what you want to look at, if you'll notice the one with account credits includes that $500 prepayment. So your total is $25,205.
Okay.
Without the account credits, your total is $25,705. Okay, nothing else has changed. All the rest of the payments, credit adjustments, procedures, everything else is the same. The only difference in those numbers is the deposits or the patient credits.
Okay.
Okay. Will this work for you for end of day?
Sure.
All right, awesome. Now, if you're looking over this after we get done and you see that it actually doesn't have all the information that you want or need, just know that you can build custom reports, and we will go over how to do that in your advanced sessions. This one's just already built into Curve here, so lots of offices use this in place of their day sheets. But again, if you need more information than this, we can always build a custom report. That way you have everything that you need to look at.
So I can do custom reports like, well, anything from like procedure, like for instance, what are the procedures for the month that are just being billed to Medicaid, of what types, things like that.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. And then up at the top right-hand side, where you clicked on Run Report, you have the option to print. So if you want front office to print this out and put it on your desk at the end of the day, they can do that. And then you also have export to CSV. Now, I'm no computer genius, but that apparently it will it will it will send this over to something like Excel or some other spreadsheet type program if you are storing all of that in another spreadsheet type program type thing. Okay?
Got it.
That's what that does.
There we go.
That was very technical, right?
It was. It worked for me.
All right, perfect. Well, doctor, can I help you with anything else today before I let you go?
I don't think... What was the title of today's meeting again?
Billing management.
That's right. Okay.
Okay, and then the next one is insurance management part 2. We probably need to go ahead and schedule that. Do you want to set that up before we get off the phone?
Yeah. What do you have tomorrow?
Tomorrow? Oh, tomorrow I am busy. Let me see. Give me 1 second.
Or Friday?
Yeah, I was checking this against my husband's schedule. It looks like he's pretty busy too for tomorrow. What about Friday at 12:30 my time?
12:30. That would be 1:30. Let me
1:30 your time.
Let me see when Theo's got his doctor's appointment. Let me make sure when it is. Hold on 1 sec.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, it's at 4. So what did you say? Did you say 1:30 your time or 1:30 my time?
1:30 your time. So you
Okay,
would be
yeah,
done
so 4
at
o'clock's good.
3.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
perfect.
I'm going to go ahead and put you in tomorrow then at 1:30 your time, 12:30 my time. If you need to change
Friday?
that. Yeah, Friday. Sorry.
Yeah.
If you need to change that, just send me an email and we'll get it rescheduled. I know I have time on Monday, so if we need to change it, we can, okay?
Okay.
All right. Well, I will meet back with you then. If you need anything between now and then, just let me know. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week, doctor.
All right, thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.